All right, a very happy Wednesday, everyone. We've got a few things to go through today. As always, we've got some good images to go through to take a look at here. We've also got some video content that we'll be taking a look at in a second. But first, I want to start off with a submission from Dani. So yesterday, I was looking at Dani's image, and I was struggling to kind of like wrap my head around the best way to move forward with it. And luckily for me, Dani was kind enough to send over. So this is his current render. But he sent over his each light kind of broken out in different passes, just to allow me to sit down with it here in Nuke and play around with how everything is balanced. Because sometimes it's easier to like physically make the changes, and I can kind of build up to what I want to do versus trying to visualize it and explain it. So this really helped a lot, and I appreciate you taking the time to render out those passes. So what I did was I assembled those individual components into this is his full render. This is my kind of A/B between those two. So they're 99.9% match. There's something going on right there that's not matching between them. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm not going to dig too much into it because it's very minor. So my first thought when I was looking at this was like, I always ask myself, like, what is our focus? What are we doing with this shot? And it seems to me that the main focal point is the crown. So what is stopping us from really focusing in on that? It's kind of the brightness here in the foreground. There's also like something going on where it seems like there's warm light on the crown, but there's green light coming in through the sides, and like it's just something about like I think we can work with the values to get us to focus, and I think we can work with the color to get us to focus. So my first thought was I wanted to tone down some of this light here in the foreground. So I went ahead and did that. My other thought was, like if this is going to be warm, like why not? And I can show you just kind of step by step through it. Like so, because I kind of took it down. And the color was a little bit murkier, so I went ahead and just and added some more blue to it, and then I added a little glow to that light as well, just to get it to kind of just like, because it's light bouncing off of like tile, and there'd be just like kind of a glowy element to it, right? Like it would just kind of like it would just, there would be an energy to that light coming up. So I added a little bit of a glow there. So and then adding the blue, because I think what I wanted to do was construct more of a cooler surrounding to all the areas around the crown, and then leave the crown as kind of a warm element to really focus this in there. So I did the same thing with like this far background. Like I went ahead and toned that down a little bit, and then added a little bit of coolness to it to get us to pop. And now we've got this bounce light over here, and it's kind of doing the same thing where it's not quite coordinated with the ground because I darkened that. So same thing. I just glowed it up a little bit, and actually looking at it now, I do want to just take it down just a touch more. So just like that. Now we've got these three lights that are our main components here. So the first thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to warm up this light coming in here to kind of match the warmth of the light that's kind of existing on there. So I just made a couple of little color tweaks there, and I glowed that light up a little bit too. Just because I wanted, like, this is kind of an type of a thing, and I kind of just like want to really amp that up. Now from the crown, I really wanted to goose that up as well too. So I went ahead and made that a little bit brighter, and then I made the light kind of on that surface of the front surface of the table a little bit brighter too. From there, I pulled a Luma key of the set and just brightened that up a little bit, mostly right here in the center. And then I wanted to take a pass at like really darkening around these edges to kind of focus this in there. So I just drew a little roto shape. And there are different ways of doing this. I just, roto shape. I blurred it up a little bit. I inverted it, and then I graded it down. So you can see that there. And now this versus the original, I feel like now we have a color scheme and illumination that really helps us kind of zero in a little bit more, right? So we've got cool versus warm and light versus dark, both kind of taking their toll. Now, the one question I have when I'm looking at this is this is not a very realistic lighting scenario because it's like it kind of feels nighttime with this very bright warm light coming in, but I'm actually not 100%. I actually don't think that's 100% a problem because I think this is more of like a magical, mythical type of scene. So some of the things that I would like to say, so I'd like to kind of fall into this realm of the look of it, and from there I think we can, because now that this light's a little more toned down, it feels more like skylight than it does key light, and now this is more the key light. So I would like to tone this down to this level and go ahead and soften up these shadows, because now it's not coming from a smaller light source. It's probably a little bit of a larger one, and that'll also help soften this area and keep our focus back here. I hope you like this. I hope this was beneficial for you. But like I said, I really like doing this where I just break down a shot from the individual lights, because I think that it, again, helps me wrap my head around it, and I hope you guys find it beneficial too. If you like it, let me know and I can do more of these. Okay, let's hop over into our videos and then we will hop into our still images. So Kat, let's start with your camera move. This looks good. Same thing. I would start it. Maybe it's just a matter of fading in. But do you see how like the camera's at a dead stop when we start and then it ramps in? I want to start like this. I want to start like let's say we're starting like this, and from the first frame that plays, the camera's already in motion. But this movement looks a lot better. So the only two notes I have was that at the beginning, and then right here at the end. Well, three notes I should say now. I just saw one. So the camera picks up speed as it goes through here. So just watch out, because like right now it's. Let's do it a little more. So right now it's kind of moving smooth. Just watch her, and then all of a sudden, like it accelerates a little bit faster. I would maybe just, and then it slows back down. So maybe like maintain that similar speed throughout. Now on this last frame, this is going to be kind of our hero frame at the very end here, and what I want is to make sure that we can read at least her, like we want the last frame to, because this is probably where a lot of people will stop and it won't loop. So we want to make sure this frame looks good. I want to see the entirety of her silhouette. It's almost like I want this camera to move around a little bit more this way so that we can really kind of, so we can see her in her hero pose and she's not being blocked by anything. So really work on the stopping point being like an ideal composition for her. And that would be, that would be my advice there. Yeah. But all in all, this is, yeah, it's good work. It is a little bit like, yeah, it's just this movement in here as it rotates around could be a little bit smoother. Do you feel it's like kind of pulsating in and out a little bit? And the speed varies. So just smooth that down just a little bit. One thing to note too is this is a very, very long shot. A 600 frame shot in an animated film is considered on the longer, like in the top 5% of long shots in the film. At 30 frames per second, you're looking at a 20-second shot. Just something to be aware of is that, like, when you do have shots this long, prepare yourself for a little bit of render time. Like, even if they take, even if it's like a 5-minute render per frame, you're looking at 30,000 render minutes, which could be a lot. So just preparing you for that there. All right. Okay, let's move on to we'll do Dani, then we'll do Aaron. So Dani, much better with those pops on the ground. That looks a lot better. There's a little bit of haze on the building. It doesn't feel quite like volumetric. It just feels like a lack of contrast on there. So I would just up the contrast just a little bit on there. And I'm saying that mostly because like this feels hazy, but then like the bottom of this tree doesn't, and I think that's actually behind the house, or at least further away from the camera than the house. So I would just kind of take that down a little bit. These sprinkles at the beginning are very bright compared to everything else. They seem to be getting kind of illuminated independently from everything. But she's looking a lot better. And the last note on her would just be to, let's brighten up the flower a little bit. Let's really get that to feel, because like flowers have backscatter, like let's make it feel like because the light source is still coming in from her front side. I think it's more from the side now, but just feeling a little bit of light penetrating through there would be good. A little translucency in that guy. Yeah, and I think that'll be good for the next step. So good job there. Aaron, versus your previous version. All right. So you're darker in the back there when we start. And you mentioned you got your notes in here, which is really funny. I do this. I do this sometimes with my shots. I'll just throw notes on there so that the director or whoever. I don't always do that, but like for my internal reviews, yeah, I'll throw those on there so that people don't look at things I don't want them to look at. So we got black lines around the legs and the geometry penetration on the top of the door. Cool. So I like the darkness in there at the front. I do think we could do even just like a little bit more light because it's looking good. Just a little more light in this space. Additionally, when she steps forward, it would be nice if like this is a little bit bright on the light on her. And I would like to read her nose just a bit more. So if you could pull it around a little more frontally, just like a couple degrees, that would be great. And then for him, he's looking good. I think that the one thing I would do is add a little color and maybe a little bit more value in the fill light here. He's just like a little gray, dingy. I would maybe just try adding a little bit of coolness in there. I think would be kind of nice. And then lastly, and this is kind of a strange one. I don't know quite what to do with this, but so looking at the tabletop, I was noticing that it appears to be reflecting a very bright specular highlight that is just not here. So maybe it's a matter of if you have an AOV on the reflectivity or the specularity of that table, it might be good to just kind of eliminate that so that those two kind of line up. Yeah, I think that's a good for your next progress. So great job there. All right, let's take a look at some stills. Start with Alfredo. Oh, Alfredo. Yeah, this one's a lot of fun. Love the color palette. I also, like others, love the How to Train Your Dragon movies. I really love the first one. The sequels are sequels, so whatever. But like, I really, really love that first film. That really caught me off guard. I remember seeing. And anyway, I can tell a whole story about that. But in terms of your image, I love the color palette that you're choosing. I really hope that you're gonna match the eye color because I think that is or something. Not necessarily. It doesn't specifically have to be that color eye, but something that punchy and saturated to pop from the kind of desaturated look of the rest of the shot would be very cool. The one thing to watch out for is like a heavy depth of field in the foreground because like it just like you want him to feel very big and imposing, and adding too much depth of field will actually make it'll make her feel small. Another thing, this is let's see. It's really interesting because I want to emphasize more specularity on the character, but it just doesn't match the style, right? And then the last thing I would say is just make sure that the key light is favoring one side over the other. It's pretty frontal in this example. Do you see how like there's more light here and then darkness in here? If you look at this render, the key light is kind of split equally between the two sides. So I would favor one side over the other. That's really good stuff. Amit, this is the first time I've seen his head at kind of like a 3/4 angle. He's got a weird shaped head, man. I think it was more because I think it's the first time I've ever seen him not straight on. And it's very funny. So in terms of your reference, if like this is pretty like clear Rembrandt lighting with this triangle here, and you're kind of getting it roughly in there, and I think that's really cool. In terms of the color palette, it's and this might not be what you're looking at or what you're referencing in this, but these cooler values are much cooler in here, and then the key light is more desaturated. Versus this where the key light is warmer and then the fill area is more desaturated. So, do with that what you want. If you want to match the reference, you can. But that would just be a matter of shifting the color palette so that this, again, this area becomes bluer, and then this area becomes a little bit less saturated and a little more neutralized. So I do, but that being said, I do think that you could probably go a little bit with a little bit more coolness in the fill side, and then it's even a little darker here, a little cooler and a little darker in this region, and then you know what, the key light might be pushed around a little bit too much, although it looks nice. I would consider shifting it around that way just a little bit more. And then if this is the key light shadow, this is going to be a little bit on the tight side. I would just increase the radius on that. But overall, this is looking well. His hair looks pretty good. Love this specular highlight in the shadowed area. That really makes a nice difference. You can see there's some nice specularity in here too. Yeah, I'm wondering if, do you see how there's like a little bit of glow on the hair? I'm wondering if there's a way of getting just like a little bit more on his hair up there. But yeah, I think this is looking really well. So really, really great start. All right, Danny. So with this one, I think I'm wondering if, yes, it's looking a lot better. I think we can also vignette this one similar to what I did with your other one. Just because I really kind of like, it feels like this is now really becoming our central interest point, and all of this stuff can kind of go a little bit into darkness. So I'm wondering if you shouldn't vignette that a little bit. Also, and I know I've talked about not doing a lot of depth of field on very large scale scenes, but you can add like a 5 pixel or less blur, maybe a 3 pixel blur on this bench in the foreground, and I think that would really help out a lot. So let's create a 2D vignette around the sides of this, and also that would help would be plugging this in, that like bit where we see through to the sky. Yeah, that actually will help make the world feel a lot bigger, and then vignetting that in and adding a little bit of depth of field would be really good there. Jeff, cool stuff. I think this is looking really great. I do want to create more variation as we fall back into space here. So I would like maybe find some reference of like ocean reference and look at some aerial perspective on it as it goes back into space, because I think that'll really, really help you out and really kind of build that sense of depth, because the values are the same in the foreground as we move towards the background there. Orbs look a lot better. Maybe a little brighter on these guys in the middle. And then the blue light, the cool light on some of these seafood components are kind of neutralizing the warm value. I would make those saturation points pop, because you don't want them to kind of get murky, because again you want them to be a little bit more on the warm side to kind of match their hero color. But this is really good. I would just hit those notes, then go on from there. Jordan, it's nice to see. Let's see. All right. For your iDinks question. It's a good question. It looks like you threw something in there. So on a static image, in all honesty, you can look at what I did in the Mr. Bean example in the character lighting course. Since it's not animated, I usually just either use a radial or a roto shape to create the shape of the iDing that I want, and then I literally will just like plus it on top of the image. There's no, unless I am specifically trying to reflect the environment, which I do anyway, which I have an inflection or environment reflection pass. But for the ding, it's literally like, let's say, actually I got this open. Let me say, let's pretend, this is a weird example, but let's pretend that that I don't know, something like, let's say that this is the iDing in here. What I would do would be one of two things. I would let's say I want a very specific shape for this iDing, something like that. I would draw that shape, and again, in Nuke there are 600 ways of doing things. I am a big fan of kind of separating each step out so that I can see them. Take this, merge this inside of here. So now we just have that shape. Oh, I didn't set this properly. Anytime that you see this, where your resolution isn't matching up between, like, say your drawn roto shape and the final image, it's because in your project settings, there's just like a different aspect ratio between them. All right, so now we've got that there. Move it up a little bit. Okay, so this is going to be my eye ding. I've got this. I will literally just take that and plus it over the top. And then again, you can add just like a little bit of a glow. You can add a little blur. You can add whatever you want to really make the eye ding. Now you can, instead, if you want it to be like a perfect circle, you can also add a radial, which would kind of do the same thing and give you like some more control on that. So if I just want to make like a real little eye ding and just pop it right here on that. There you go. So now it's got like a little eye ding on there. So again, you don't really have to get too complicated with it. It's just a matter of getting it in there. So in terms of your image, so we've got your Photoshop version versus the regular. I like this focusing in. I think that's really good. You've got a really nice richness going on her skin, which is so important, it turns out, with her. The more that we saw her being lit in the challenge, the more that really plays a role. I think the areas that you should focus in on, number one would be making these, like really beautifying these flowers a little bit. They're a little dark in their core. So maybe a little bit of ambient light in there, maybe a little bit of colored light in there. Just something to kind of lift those values. Like, do you see how pretty these are? Making those kind of match actually all the other flowers would be really good. And then the second thing that I would focus in on is trying to get a little more variation in the shawl. You can do that a couple ways. You can make it like translucent and have light kind of penetrating through there. It just kind of is consistent in value around her head. And then I think you could actually, in my head, I just want to make that background a little bit darker. Just to get her to pop forward a little bit more, and maybe even a little bit cooler. But I think that would help just from like a pure aesthetics on her standpoint. But this is looking really good. Really great job. Mindy, so much fun. Yeah, I think the depth of field, I think it looks good. It might be a little too strong. I don't want you to worry about getting used to it. I'm sorry. I don't, like, there's no, like, the only way to study depth of field look is to A, understand what's going on, and B, just look at a lot of images. It's just going to take time. There's no like magic bullet to that one. The one thing that I would say is that I would like to see, and this is more in the background, a little bit more warmth in the haze back there. Maybe, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, because it's kind of like a warm day and just warm light would be bouncing around a little bit back there. So just looking at the background here, I think I think a little bit of a warmer light would look pretty good. Now in the foreground, I think all the background stuff looks pretty good. I do think that in the foreground we can pull down the darks just a little bit to get them to pop forward, and then really work on getting some good specularity in the skin. I would do, or I'm sorry, I guess it is their skin, whatever, the sushi wrap, because it looks a little bit matte, and it would be nice to get some of those specular highlights in there. You should scroll up through the lighting work in progress and feedback channel. You'll see some other examples of people doing that really well. All right, Shibly, thank you for your patience. I know you're at the end here. So for this one, I think this is really great reference. So notice the amount of light that's up here on her face, because light is bouncing up off the ground. I would like to match something towards that level on him. So getting a little bit more light bounce on him. And I also think it's really, really great reference for the snail itself. Do you see how there's like, even in this kind of overall cool image, the snail itself has inherent warmth in the shell and in the body. Like, running right down the middle is just a little bit of extra warmth. And when we flash back here, that warmth is missing a little bit. So I would really like to see that placed in. In terms of the composition of the rest of the scene, I think that you can darken some of the stuff in this area down here, just to kind of keep our focus back in this region. And same thing here. That can get a little bit darker. And these flowers back here, you want to make sure that you feel like there's sun passing through flowers. They're a little gray, a little dingy for now. You really want those to kind of be bright. And then be careful with the saturation level on some of your grass. Just looking at the stuff in the foreground feels a little extreme on the saturation front. But yeah, but this is starting to come together really well. I think this is going to be really good. All right, so that's it for today, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed today's lighting critique, and I look forward to talking with you more tomorrow. All right, happy lighting, everybody.